Hey, y'all, and welcome to this week's episode of the Mike Mullen Podcast. Thanks for joining me. It has been a crazy couple of weeks for me, real crazy couple of weeks. You know, when I started this podcast, I told you I don't pretend to know everything. You know, I'm still just a guy, sometimes just trying to figure it out. Luckily for me, though, I could figure out things a little bit easier than, some people, only because, I put the tools together and the effort together and the knowledge together. A lot of it's just being mindful and being aware of thoughts, because thoughts really are the thing that control us. They're what shape our destiny. They're what hold us back. They're the things that we got to be aware of, because like I said, every thought creates an emotion. Every emotion creates an action. Every action is your results in life. So I've got a lot of things going on. And one of them right now is, I'll just tell you, I'm getting set to move. We're leaving Charlotte and we're going back to England. Now I say going back because we used to live in England. Prior to that, we were in Charlotte. So Charlotte to England, back to Charlotte, going to England. But we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But, realistically today, I just want to share with you, I want you to understand, through my own trials, my own tribulations, and my own journey, why you cannot just exist in this world. You have to be proactive. And if you're unhappy, you got to start living in it. As I often talked about on this podcast, life is about living. It's not just about existing. And if you're not happy, you got to be willing to make change. So like I just said, I'm moving again. We're moving to England, almost 50 years old this year. And it's another uproot and go. But it's not, it's not like running from something. It's, I think it is a better opportunity, more experiences, great things for the kids. And that's why we're going to do it. But, my whole life has been this way. My whole life has always been, I always want to just take risks, take chances. I've been doing it again my whole life. So many people are so scared to make little adjustments in their life, and they go through their whole lives just, regretting at some point. When I was young, I wanted to be a good football player. That was kind of my dream. And I remember I wasn't a very good football player when I first started. I was small, I was skinny. I couldn't run very fast, wasn't very strong. I wasn't the fastest or strongest, quickest, as I used to like to say to people, but I would work on it because this is what I wanted to do. And by the time I got to high school, I was a good football player, and I got several awards. I think I talked about this in the past. Went on, played college football. I was dreaming mine to do it, and got hit by a car on a motorcycle going into my sophomore year. Totally took out me, but as far as getting cleared out by a car, but I was lucky to be alive. And the biggest thing was I lost mobility in my right hand. Or at least most of my mobility in my right hand. Oh, well, you're not going to play football again. But I said, no, I want to play. My doctor said, well, we'll leave it up to you. And I did, and I played. And I actually had a pretty good college career. And so that was, I overcame that obstacle and did it. I graduated college. I said, my parents like, what are you going to do? I said, oh, I want to be in entertainment. Like, what? Nobody, what do you mean? I said, no, I want to do that. I moved to New York City, eventually moved to Los Angeles, had a very, very modicum of success in the entertainment business. But it was something I wanted to do. It was a choice I made. It was a risk I made. So many people, they come out of high school into college, and out of college, they get their jobs, they start their 401ks, they get their family, they start a marriage, or at least, in my generation, maybe it's a little bit different with the generation now. But, now they get to my age, and, they're approaching maybe retirement in the next 10 years, and their kids are already out of the house and maybe in college. And that was their journey. And that's great for me. That's just not something I wanted. I spent 16 years of my life just kind of living the way I wanted to live. It wasn't always glamorous, but it didn't need to be, because life's not about how much you have. It's just about how much happiness it's producing. Eventually I met my wife. We got married. We lived in New York City. From there, we're having our first. We relocated to Charlotte, and then we had our daughter down here. We hung out for a while. I actually did a couple of films. I was part of a couple of films. I was down here, and then, one day we just decided, what, let's move to England. My wife wanted to go there, so we did it. So we upped and went to England. We went there and spent 3 years there, and it was all right. But, we felt like things could be a little bit better. And we felt like, let's go back to the U.S. and let's do that. And we got back here, but it was tough. I arrived back, how to get a job. We didn't have anything lined up. See, this is the thing about us. There's never really anything lined up. we just decide, let's go. Let's just pivot. Let's take a chance. Let's take a risk. Because the thing of it at the end of the day is like you might fail, but you'd rather fail trying and realizing, you don't have no regrets than just sitting around, staying in a position that maybe you're not super happy with. And then, again, as you get older, and I'm starting to see it now, even at my age, I'm starting to feel like, I'm going to be 50 this year. It's like, God, there's so much I want to do. There's so much I want to do, but time starts flying by faster. But we did it, and we turned it into a pretty good life over the last 5 years, to the point that I'm actually now turning around and selling my home that we bought. That again, it's funny, when I came back here, it almost felt like that immigrant story. I came back with nothing, and maybe even a little bit of debt, and was able to power through and do some pretty good things and get myself out of all that and buy, a nice home for the family and stuff. But again, my wife, we look around and we go, oh, well, is this all we want? Or do we want to try for more? Do we want to, give our kids better, maybe a better education? Do we want to give them more experience? Do we want to, take them out and give them a more worldly view? So what do? We kind of blow it all up because, where some people, in our situation maybe would sell and move into a bigger or better situation, maybe a bigger house in a more suburban area with more suburban comforts. We're actually going to be taking a step backwards because I'm going to be moving to a more expensive area in England, but we want our kids in a certain school district. So we're going to, probably just have to rent a house in that district to make sure our kids get in. But we turn around and go and buy a house probably another year from now. So for some at 50 years old, that's scary. That is a step backwards. But to me, it's not, because for every step backwards, if you really work hard and you're focused on it, you'll get 2 steps forward. So I guess what I'm just saying here is you got to be willing to take risks, no matter what it is. You got to be willing to take risks. I mean, if you're unhappy. Now, look, if you're happy in your life, no matter what it is, like, there's some people who just, they grew up in the same town. They bought a house in the same town. They still hang out with a lot of the same people from that town. But if you're happy with that, if that's your life, that's great. Anybody who would judge somebody like that, say, oh, that's so boring. Why didn't they do more? They haven't gone anything, or they haven't done anything. No, man, if you're happy, that's all it is. Because that's what life's about. Life's about just being happy, making choices that make you happy. But if you're making choices and keeping it safe because you're scared, that is the problem. That's the problem. And it's never too late to make a change, to try something. What is the worst that can happen? You could fail. What is the best thing you can happen? You can find a better life for yourself. Life is about living. And those years, I mean, if you're young right now, you think, oh, well, I got all the time. And what? You don't. I remember graduating high school at 17. I remember graduating college. Like this was yesterday. I remember moving to Los Angeles, in the year 2000. That's almost 24 years ago. It's crazy for me to think about that. But life's about living. It's just not about existing. Now, some people might say, well, this is reckless of you, Michael. You got this great home. You got this great area. You live in this great place. But I don't know. I just feel like there's more. And my wife has a great opportunity for herself, so that's, in a relationship, you got, there's a little give and take. And my wife has an opportunity for herself. And that's why we're willing to, just say, okay, let's just pack it all up and go. And this is not something that we thought about over months. This isn't something we planned. So that's the other time. Lots of people say, oh, I got to plan. How many times you talk to people, they've got these grand ideas about these things they're going to do. Oh, yeah. And, a couple of years from now, my dream is to do this and my dream is to do that. And, keep going, keep talking about that plan. It never comes to fruition. My wife and I made this decision a week ago. I've already had my realtor in the house, already getting ready to go ahead, sell the house. Getting ready, got to go. I already got to get mover set up. I already got to get the cats looked at because I got to transport animals. Have you ever transported animals across the Atlantic? It's not cheap, but we got to do it. There's a lot going on. I like to think that my wife and I handle stress better than 99% of the people in the world because we've just put ourselves in so many situations where, most people would crack. I know people who won't move out of their neighborhood even if they wanted to. They won't move out of their state even if they wanted to because of the fear of, or just one of those things like, oh, it just seems like so much work. So I'd rather stay in mediocrity instead of going out there and trying for something better. I know this podcast probably really has no point to it. I know I'm just here, but I guess what I'm trying to say as I close to almost my 100th episode is that you have got to be willing to get uncomfortable to maybe get something better. You got to be willing to get uncomfortable to get somewhere better. Sometimes we just tell ourselves, no, we're good. I'm real comfortable here. But you're not. You're just not happy. But you're too scared to take a risk. You're too scared to take a chance. You're too scared. But sometimes you have to. And sometimes the world, the universe will force you. It'll force you into a corner and force you to have to fight back. You might lose a job and all of a sudden you have to make a change. Something might come in front of you that all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't go that way anymore. Now I have to go around. It's going to force you to make a change. But the thing of it is you can't let fear stop you. A lot of times, what's the worst that can happen? You know what? I use moving a lot because that's what's on my mind right now. Maybe you move out of your neighborhood, you go somewhere else, you realize you don't like it. Well, you know what? You can come back. But what about if you move and you go somewhere else and it turns out to be the best thing for you? Then you look back on it and number one, you're going to celebrate, oh my gosh, it was the scariest thing I did in my life. But you know what? I did it and I'm better for it. So many people stay in jobs that way. Well, I'm just too scared. If I go out, I'm not going to get another job, blah, blah, blah. And this job is this and that. So I'd rather just, complain and be miserable about it instead of taking a chance and going out. I walked away last year from a job, paid me high sixes figures. I mean, I was probably in that 90 percentile. And then one day I just decided I don't want to do it anymore. Just said, I'm not going to do it anymore. People said, where are you going? What, you got something lined up ready? Nope. You're just going to go, yep. And you know what? As much as I like to tell you, oh my God, it landed on my face. I landed on my feet and it's been better for it. It's better for it for a little bit. But you know what? I wouldn't say I'm better for it right now at this point. But you know what? I'm still glad I did it. I still feel like my life has been more fruitful over the last year because that job paid me well, but it took a lot of time away from my family. And I prefer the time with my family. And I trust myself and I believe in myself. But I put myself in so many of these situations that I'm used to it. I'm used to being uncomfortable. I'm used to managing it. That doesn't necessarily mean that I don't get stressed out sometimes. I don't get freaked out. I don't have to have my wife talk me off the ledge. But, I got the tools. I try to keep control of the mind. Try not to let the thoughts run away, especially when the thoughts get in the future about all these worries, when, those things in the future may never come to fruition. So I guess what I'm saying in this long, rambling podcast is that if you're unhappy, you just got to be willing to take a chance. Again, what's the worst that can happen? I ultimately believe, though, if you were in a position where you were really unhappy with whatever job, relationship, living situation, wherever it is, when you make that jump, you will be better for it. Because if you're really at that frustrated level, that is the universe, that is whatever, that is telling you it is time to go. All right, everybody. That's all I really have for you today. Sorry about that. Like I said, a lot of things going on. Packing a house, getting animals looked at, setting up shipping, looking for my new home overseas, and all this other stuff. So please forgive me on this podcast, maybe not being as informative as the ones in the past, but I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And I wish you the best for the rest of the week, and have a great and safe weekend. And as always, I got another love for you.